Thank you so much, Matt. I'm so happy to have you join me today. I'm very excited to talk to you because we are going to talk about a topic that matters to me very much. It's the whole conversation around identity, who we are, and how a lot of people will probably resonate with this conversation because I feel like we were taught to tie our identity to what we do and align on our resume. And this is a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about burnout. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you, Matt, for being here.
Thanks for inviting me onto the podcast.
So, it is not a light topic talking about identity and, building who we are and talking about all these things. So, let's start with, what the last 20 years of professional life look like for you and who you thought you were through the working years.
So I feel like I've been on a real journey with it. When I was younger, I wanted to be an actor. That was all I could think about but this is when I was a kid. And I grew up in a little village in Cornwall, which is very remote, very rural, hundreds of miles away from anything, to do with acting. No one in my family or my extended family had ever gone to university, so there was not that expectation like that I would have done that. And so I feel that drama school in the UK drama school to progress acting is thought of very much like university would be thought of. So it was a dream that withered on the vine, basically. It just didn't happen. But I love performing arts. I just, create anything creative, anything in that space. And I stumbled accidentally into artist development, of a general sort of performing arts artist development. Worked with some different friends on different projects, and had built businesses that were, for what they were doing really well. They're really popular, but I didn't want to be a business person. But to do what you love, unless you can go and do it for someone else, you have to accept the fact, like, oh, there's all the other business stuff, and I'm not very good at that. So, like, that was a baptism of fire for me to get my head around, what I had to do in 2010. I've been doing those sort of things for like 7 or 8 years. So 2010, I realized that actually there was a glass ceiling in Cornwall. I'd hit that glass ceiling and I needed to be somewhere else. So somewhere that had more potential, somewhere that was closer to London. I'm one of those people that, like, I hate the thought of going to London, but I love it when I'm there and it's hustly and bustly. But also, I'm really glad to get on the train and come home. I'm a country boy. I'm not a city boy, or I wasn't a city boy. Now I live in Bristol, which is about an hour and a half away from London. And moving to Bristol for me was literally like such a game changer, because I was able to be more adventurous with my ideas, and I was able to connect with more people. Maybe it's a me thing, but I think there's a perception when someone says that they're from like a rural area or a remote area, that immediately they feel like they're on the back foot with the person that they're speaking to. Maybe it's imposter syndrome. I don't know. Maybe there's an element of that to it. And then since moving to Bristol in 2010, so over the last 16 years, I've just been foot to the floor, done some absolutely incredible things across music, media, podcasts, live events. Like on paper, it's crazy that so much had happened in 16 years. So many memories, bad things as well as good things, that happen, because in anyone's life or in anyone's career, it's not all plain sailing. But yeah, God, it's been a journey.
So you just said your foot were on the pedal. What does that mean really when we talk about your work life?
I was someone I kind of, and I know we're going to talk about identity and we're going to talk about, our journeys, but I was someone that for some reason I was wired up to think that I lived to work. I have and admit, like I would say, it was sort of I hate being like big headed about it, but I feel like I do have, a pretty amazing work ethic. And that wasn't like drummed into me by my parents. That's just, I've been wired up like this. I would rather I wasn't wired up like it sometimes, but I was. I guess I don't like to stand still. Even though I've been in Bristol 16 years, the amount of things that I've done in that 16 years, like, I think a lot of people wouldn't have done that in their whole career, let alone in a condensed period like, 16 years. The thing about putting my foot to the floor is that I always wanted to do more, better, bigger, faster, because that's what motivates me. That's what got me out of bed every day. And now I look back at some of it and think, how the hell, how the hell did we even like make that happen? Because I'm also something like I came literally from nothing, like very working class family. I haven't had any handouts. I haven't had any leg ups. I've not been lucky. I've not had a lucky break. I have grafted for 20 plus years to get to where I am in my life now. And I feel quite good about that. Like, I'm not anti university. I've got friends that teach at universities and what have you. But like, I've been really fortunate in the past to be asked to speak to students. So maybe people considering their options at like 18. I always try to be neutral, but I caveat that by saying, but I didn't go to university, and that has never been a blocker for me. Like, if anything, I feel that there was one point where people that I went to school with, they did go to uni, but their careers didn't start for such a long, long, long time. They're now earning way more than me. So, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? But yeah, I didn't think that was a blocker. But you're talking about foot to the floor. I think I had this quite reckless mindset of feeling like I had to do everything once. It was like a bingo card for me. Looking back on it, I was thinking like the amount of individual things and opportunities created and things achieved, like, it's great, but sort of quite unsustainable. Like, once you've done it once, you've done it. I'm a thrill seeker, I don't know, but I'm someone that wants to, like I said, do it bigger, harder, faster, stronger. And that is, well, that's very draining after a while, but also at the time, incredibly fun.
Yeah, these are they are opposite, and they obviously collide with one another. It does sound like a train speeding, and no one knows how to, pull the brakes. But I do want to ask you, why do you think you felt you needed to be this way?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I was what I've whoever wired me up, they need finding and sorting out because the wiring was clearly faulty. I had, and note the word past here, I had the mindset of I live to work. I feel like I was born to achieve really great things, but in a work capacity, and I really did. But I didn't have anyone saying to me, "You don't need to be going that fast. You don't need to be," because when you're working with clients that are creative, they're relying on you to feed them opportunities and to keep pushing them as hard as you can. Then to push someone else hard, it's you doing the pushing. So when you've got multiple people that all require being pushed really, really hard, you have to keep going because that's what they're relying on you to do. And like I said, there wasn't anyone there saying to me, you don't have to do that much. Like, I'm a great believer of under promising and over delivering, but I like to over deliver. And sometimes that would be beyond what was expected, which is kind of cool once or twice. But when you're doing it multiple times, rinse, repeat, that's where we're on this train and no one knows how to stop it.
And what you said about no one telling you is something that I find very important because I always say, I mean, I always like when they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that for most of us, we grew up in wherever we were born, and then we hang out with the same people, and then we all go into pretty much the same schools. I also didn't go to university, and I think this is also tied to, identity. If you don't go where everybody is going, who are you? You know? Um, and then you're just in this cycle of work and then people you hang out with are just by default somehow, and then you have the friends that you've always had, and if no one is doing anything differently, how can you even have someone to tell you, "Hey, this is not your path?" Or how do we even recognize that? So what happened for you to realize that you were, um, I mean, on the path to exhaustion?
So I don't like to stand still, and I haven't stood still since 2005, but probably earlier than that. So that's what, 21 years ago now. I think we know our own bodies and we know our own mind. And I knew in November 2024 that something was not right. I started to withdraw from like social situations. I stopped drinking because if you're not social, then you don't need alcohol. And but actually, it was my body. My body wasn't saying you're tired of like don't do social things because like that's what's draining you. My body generally, I think, was telling me like you need to stop everything for a little bit. And I didn't listen to it stupidly. And because the social situations are like a breaker, aren't they? So if you've had a stressful day and then you socialize, you kind of like break that day. Like, okay, well that's fine. It was not a very good day, but do something social and you get over it. But I stupidly told myself that, okay, so all the time then that you're not doing social things, then you can do more work things because harder, faster, bigger, stronger, like that like mantra in my brain. And it got to last July and just gave up.
What does it mean, gave up?
I had a panic attack in an airport, and my doctor basically uh signed me off for, like, you're burnt out. Burnt out isn't a medical term in the UK. It's work related stress, but it wasn't work. It was like life related stress. It was everything. But obviously, to get signed off means that you don't have to work, worry about work. Yeah. And I mean, it's been, well, 9 months now, and I have turned many corners in that time, and definitely I'm coming out the other side of it. But honestly, there was a period last summer where I didn't even know where the door was to even come out of this dark room that I was in. It was kind of like I cannot see how you come back from this. It was it the really frustrating thing is that the warning signs had been there for quite a long time, maybe even years, and I'd ignored them and ignored them and ignored them. And then to get to the stage where I couldn't even get out of bed, had literally like zero interest in anything, like no attention span. You couldn't even like watch a TV program because it just couldn't. It was just there, but I wasn't watching it. It was just there. Sleep was completely screwed. Withdrew from friends. Yeah, yeah, just terrible. I lied to my parents. They didn't know that I wasn't working. They didn't know that I was ill. To just trying then to keep up that because of that, then that worry is something that I wouldn't want other people to have. So yeah, but it's because I didn't listen to what my body was saying for a long time before that. And eventually it hits you, and it knocks you lower than I even thought it was possible to be knocked. Nasty, just really nasty.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Oprah said that life will give you whispers, and if you don't listen to the whispers, one day it'll be a scream. And it sounds like it's exactly what happened to you.
It was a scream, yes.
And I'm sorry you had to go through that. And I feel like most people will think that burnout is just, oh, you're tired, get some rest. And I think you're here to testify that it's so much more than that, that it's an actual trauma that you go through. Uh, and I think in your case even more, because we were talking about identity. What happened to that identity, to Matt, the co-founder of a company, not being able to get out of bed? Can you share what went through your mind?
Go back to this live to work thing. I've always been Matt from something, never just been Matt from something. And I love that because I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of all the projects I've ever worked on. Like I'm immensely proud of the results, and even proud of failures, because within every failure there's something that you can take from it. And as soon as it was diagnosed as burnout, work related stress, but burnout, and I was forced to just, unplug, basically, is the only term that I can think of now, like being forced to unplug. It sounds really silly now because I'm, a, I'm, I'm the other side of it. But at that moment of unplugging, I felt like my very like who I was, what I was, had been stripped from me because I was unable to do it. So as soon as the plug got taken out the wall, the plug lost all sense of purpose and identity. And so those days when you're lying in bed because you're absolutely burnt out and you need to rest, the thoughts go through your head of like, well, what's the point in even trying to get better, because I've lost who I am and what I am, because I had tied who I was to my work, and that's really unhealthy. But I've learnt that through therapy and through, I've been able to access a lot of resources. We're so grateful for all the resources that I access, but it's taken me, 9 months, and I'm not there yet. But it's taken me that 9 months to really sort of understand that someone's identity is it doesn't have to be linked to what they do for their job. And it will sound that might sound so silly to some people, but to me, it was like a duh moment. Like, what the hell have I been thinking for all these years? Like, but I would not have that train would not have stopped at any stations had it not have happened. So I am a great believer in the universe, and I really think that everything happens for a reason. And now, 9 months on, coming out the other side, I'm not in that room anymore. I don't know where the door is, and I literally feel like this is it. This is like, is this the end type scenario? To now be 9 months on, and to just I've uncoupled who I am from what I do. Oh, it feels so freeing, feels so liberating to actually not let what I'm doing define me. I define me. And that's really that's been like quite revolutionary for me. Can I share something with you that I'm quite proud of? So anyone that knows me knows that I love an analogy. And in one of my early therapy sessions, I was asked to, because I'm a visual person. So in one of my early therapy sessions, I was asked to describe visually what burnout looked like to me. And I was thinking, and then what came to me was an overloaded extension lead, dangerously overloaded with plugs that you can plug extra plugs in. And so it's probably going to be okay, but it is at risk of fire, is at risk of blowing up. I was like, that is how I felt, or that's how my life looked like before the burnout happened. It was dangerously overloaded. It was a mess of cables absolutely everywhere. Um, and so now what I've building on that analogy, again through therapy, it's really helped me. Now we are a modern extension lead where every single plug has its own individual off switch, and the cables are all tidied away and they've got the cable ties on them. And if I if I ever feel that I need to turn the plug off, I'm just going to do it. And I would not have been able to say that before this. I would have felt guilty for having to pull out one of the plugs. But potentially I couldn't even find the right plug to pull out because it was such an overloaded mess. Whereas now I can literally see which bits of me I'm giving to what, and turn them on and turn them off as needed. And that, I mean, might sound so simple to some people, but for me, it's literally been revolutionary.
That's a great image. I can see it.
Ray,
Uh,
please use it. If you ever talk to anyone about burnout, please use it because, like, I just think for me, it's just been really helpful.
do you think you would have been able to see this image and build this image if you didn't go through what you went through last year?
No, because I couldn't see it. I, um, I would have. I'm not exaggerating when I say, and I might sound crazy because knowing what I know now, obviously, I would have changed things, but that train was not stopping. That train was not going to stop unless someone made it stop, or like the universe made it stop. I know it sounds a bit woo woo maybe, but I feel that something somewhere had my best interests at heart when when it hit that really low point. And again, I've got real clarity of mind now in that there's some amazing resources out there, amazing organizations, amazing people. You can only access them when you need them. And so to need them, you need to hit rock bottom. You need to hit a point where you need the resource. And I've taken so much from it. So what I've tried to do is really reframe a really negative period of my life into something which is like, right, this was an opportunity to recalibrate, to, you know, I feel like I've had what is it they say, like I've had a factory reset, and they've also changed up some of the wiring.
That's great. And
Thanks.
so, how did you do the factory reset? Can you tell me about the tools that you now have in your toolbox?
The tools that I've got in my toolbox. Well, the first thing is that analogy and that image. So, like, whenever I'm sort of thinking about adding in something new, think about like, no, 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 no. Like, we've only got so many gaps on our extension lead. We've only got so many plugs we can put in. So that's the first thing. I loved the gym before. I'd always struggled to keep up with the consistently keep it up, even when I had a PT, because I always put my work mat before fitness mat or before wellness mat. And so it was never a priority for me. However, I found an amazing gym, and I'm doing like small group personal training now. So there's a real accountability there. It is a non-negotiable. It is in my diary, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week. It is a non-negotiable. Um, I've blocked out the half an hour before the gym for me to get there, blocked out the hour of the session, and then I've blocked out 1 hour after to get home, have a shower if I need to, have lunch. And so that kind of like 2.5 hours, it sounds extreme for a gym class, but for me, something had to become a non-negotiable, and then I could build the rest of my day around it. And we all know, like, the gym for mental health it's underrated, if anything. Like, I don't think that we can shout loudly enough about how, yes, you lift weight and, you make your body stronger, but you're making your mind stronger as well. And I think if you have a strong mind, you can you're more resilient, basically. And I've also found this really fun spin class that I do on a Tuesday night, which is just fun, just as an extra. So, like, I was always a kid at school that had a note for PE. Like, hated it. I was a kid at school that would get picked last for a team. So maybe I have some trauma that's never been unpacked about fitness and that kind of thing. And but then also, like, I think, you know neurodivergently, everyone is somewhere on this spectrum. And I have had to convince myself that I haven't hyper fixated on this fitness regime now. By sort of like, I feel like I've had to justify it to myself a little bit, but there's this fine line between non-negotiables, boundaries, which I want to speak to you about, boundaries and people pleasing. There's a fine line between non-negotiables and then hyperfixating, but I think that's a personal thing, that I still need to work through that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I wanna hear what you wanna say about boundaries.
Oh my god, I didn't even know what a boundary was. Um, um, I did, but I would always my boundaries were always done in pencil, so they could be rubbed out and changed, never in pen. I would never put boundaries in ink, because I'm a sort of person that would say, the answer is yes, what's the question? What do you need to achieve? We can do it. Really positive, outwardly really positive. Inside, absolutely knew that it was a stretch or I couldn't do it, or but I hate the word people pleaser, but in everyone I've spoken to that said therapy, even someone I had a coffee with this morning, she was talking about people pleasing, not in relation to me, but she knows I am. But for me, there's real power in saying no to things, and at the grand age of 43, I've only now realized that actually sometimes what people want to hear is no. They don't always want to hear yes. That is like groundbreaking for me. It's like hold the front page territory. Like that is like, um, so having those boundaries in pen, no pencils, they've got to be done in ink now. Saying no like that, in my toolbox. That word has never been in my toolbox. No. So, they're quite small things, but when you are rebooting your life and you have them as kind of like your sort of default settings, I think then that when, life gets tricky, or, if things don't quite go the way you want, then we can be more resilient because we've got that's ingrained within us.
Can you now define why you felt you needed this identity of just doing everything for everyone, putting everyone before you? You know, we don't like the word people pleaser, but where did that come from? Were you trying to kind of compensate for something else?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's years a bad habit that, kind of like if you let it happen once, it happens twice, it happens 4 times, and, it multiplies like that, it compounds. And I wonder if there's an element of that. I don't know when that became my whole identity, but I do feel like as someone that was questioning their sexuality when they were a teenager, I never really felt like I quite found that identity. At a time when people are finding their identity, I feel like I'd never found mine. And then sort of going into adult life, because I hadn't found that identity, I feel potentially that I then created an identity around the work I was doing because I was quite good at it and great things were happening. And I think as soon as you do that, I was hiding behind an identity which was only ever going to exist for as long as I was doing what I was doing. So that's when I guess this train was never going to stop, because as soon as the train stopped and I stopped doing what I was doing, then the identity is gone. And I've never verbalized it like that in that way, but I whilst we've been chatting, obviously my brain is going crazy. Whilst we've been chatting, feel like I I've been able to piece together some things in my head that maybe I hadn't been able to piece together before. I still don't know what my identity is. Honestly, there were days last year where I looked in the mirror and just said, "I hate you. I hate myself." Because I didn't know what was looking back at me, and I still don't quite know who it is that's looking back. And I feel there's definitely less of a void than there was 9 months ago, but there's still, and this is what I mean about I don't wanna be this person that's all about the gym or all about this or all about, I want to sort of find balance in my life. And I think that balance will then just kind of help me create, an identity and be happy with the identity as well, I should be so grateful that, like, I'm at a great place in life. I'm only 43, got half my life left to live, but yet for me last year it felt like the end of a life rather than now I feel excited because I'm halfway through a life, and I've got, a good 18 years of that first bit of my life was as a kid, that you don't really remember it, at school. And it's really only like, 20 plus years where I feel that I've actually been living a life. Does that make sense? Does that
It does, and it's so funny you're saying that because we're the same age, and I say this all the time. I always say, "Well, if I can live another, 2 twice what I've lived as an adult, I have so much time ahead of me. We have so much time." And I also come from, well, not such a small town, but, a small city that, where everybody knows each other, and a lot of the people I know from my childhood honestly act like it's over. I mean, they have their job since 20 years and that's it, you know? I mean, they're just waiting for retirement, and sometimes I just wanna be like, "No, there's just so much to it."
do you know, Nat, just on that, it came up in conversation the other day with a friend about Britney Spears. Random, like, we're gonna go there, okay? Britney Spears. I completely understand how, if someone is so successful in the first 20 quarter of their life, so say everyone is for 100 years, just because I'm rubbish at maths, so I can do, and it's easier for me. If if someone is successful in the first 25 years, the first quarter of what could be a 100-year life, where do they go in that second quarter? Even if they make the third quarter, like, where do you go? Like, you had so much fame, you had so much money, you had so much sort of like opportunities. And then when you're on a break or when you sort of lose that, you lose your identity. It comes back to that, doesn't it? Like, these people are living the identity that we buy into, and that because that's what we want them to do. We want them to be this, you know, thing that we all, that we're all in love with, but that isn't forever. And when it stops being an active project, active identity, then who are they?
And to go back to your life, I mean, and then and I think this is exactly what happened to you last summer. It's, who are you now that you're stripped from this work mat? But
Not that I'm trying to align myself with Britney, but I also shaved my head, um, and not what November 2024. I've shaved my head, not in a crazy moment, but there are some parallels.
I I wanted to come back to what you said earlier about you're not sure, what your identity is. Um, I think you know that I've been doing this podcast called Rethink Your Life, but it's also tied to a workshop that I, was giving back in the days to people called Rethink Your Life. And what I realized working with so many people, helping them define their lives and reconnect what they do to who they are, which is a sentence that really matters to me, is that you can define your identity. I mean, and I think this is what I wish we learned in school. We can define our own identities. It's up to us. If we can stand still, I mean, sit still for a while and just understand what we truly want. This is how we define our identity. You have all the power in your hands to define, okay, I want this and that, and this is going to be who I am, and this, tying to what we said about who do you surround yourself with and what do you want to do. You can have a career for the first 20 years of your life, and then you can decide to do something completely different for next 10, and then in 10 years you can decide to do something completely different for next 20. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think the mindset that you're building right now and the person that you're rebuilding right now, I feel is on the perfect track to do that.
Yeah. Can I just say though, sorry, Nat, when you were saying what you just said, like we need to sit and take a moment, I agree. However, does life allow us to sit and take a moment? Because life doesn't stop. In a way, and again, what I said to you earlier in the chat, like I've tried to reframe what happened to make it feel less negative and more positive. And so I was fortunate enough to, have that plug well and truly pulled out, and therefore I had that time. But not everyone has the time. So is there, for someone that doesn't have the time, is there, how would they do it? How would they be able to rethink their life if they can't sit still long enough for it to be, for them to actually like fully do it, fully think about it?
Well, I think it comes back to who surrounds you, and do you have someone in your entourage who's capable of being like, "Hey, you need to stop and just maybe find the right words." And I think this is, why you and I, we've talked about this belief so much and just inspiring other people to work on their mindset, and also to what you said earlier about looking at yourself in the mirror and the words that you use to talk to yourself. I, I'm also on the woo-woo side for that kind of things where I truly believe in the power of words. And I mean, we can change. I'm not an expert in that field, but I'm so interested in neuroplasticity, and we really have the power to change things. I don't know if I have the answer to how do we take a moment to ourselves if we don't hit a wall, or if someone unplugs us.
I mean, I'd love to know, just because I'm a curious person, but I'd love to know, for people that have done it, how could you sit when life is so fast? Like I just, I'm someone who's like all or nothing. So therefore, I'm either 100 miles an hour or I'm completely static. And so for me, it's a much more of a binary thing. But I had to stop in order to do it, or enforce stop medically in order to do it. But I'd love to know from people that have actually like done it, pivoted, like made these positive changes whilst their life is still going on. That for me, it feels like that would be impossible for me, but obviously other people do it, and like they have my greatest respect. Um, and I'm slightly jealous that they were able to do it, because like I said, I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, I do believe that, having the right people around you also to and I'm not saying that you had the wrong people, I'm just saying that if I look at, the city I came fr I was born in, I don't know if these people would have the tools to be the right people, you know? I think it's not really about it's do you have the right people who have the right tools? And I think and this is why it's hard, and this is why I do believe that your story can resonate with so many people, because I can imagine how many people feel this way, you know?
Just on that, I was well, as I said, I didn't tell my parents. They still don't know the extent of it. Um, and they're not going to listen to this podcast, hopefully. So, then they might know. Um, I was so ashamed because that identity had gone, and that for me, it was just like shame. And so it took me nearly 6 months to publicly acknowledge that what had happened. And but I put a post on LinkedIn which got a lot of engagement, and I phrased it about grief, that we don't talk enough about grief in professional life. It's always we celebrate the wins, we try and hide the failures. Yeah, we don't want people to know about that. But when something doesn't quite work out, like we don't grieve, we don't we don't acknowledge it. But I spoke about burnout in a sense of like grieving for my previous identity, and I had some really really lovely messages from people that they weren't in my LinkedIn network at the point of posting that this had reached. And you'll be really surprised at how many people have gone through that, burnout or questioning their who they are, their identity. It was it was quite it was sad, but it was quite encouraging that there are other people out there that have felt in similar way to how I had felt, and also didn't feel that they had a platform that they could speak about it. So I'm not saying that I'm going to become some burnout advocate. Like, I'm very happy to leave it in the past, but I do feel that if it can spark some conversations that help people, then we should just have them. But I also don't want my identity to be burnout survivor. Like, that's not my identity. That's not where we're going. Um, but yeah, I think it's nice when other people are able to relate to you, and vice versa. You're able to relate to other people. I think it feels less, because it's a very personal, isolating thing. So to know that other people are going through a similar thing, it was helpful for me.
And I think support from other people and see that you're not alone, and that journey is probably something that helped you rebuild, right?
It's not a word that I had ever thought about before it happened. And I, like you said, I just thought it's like tired. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm feeling a bit burnt out. I'm tired. Just need to, rest. It's way more than that. And it's happening to so many people. And I think, I mean, I'm not solving the world's greatest mystery here, But I feel that the reason why it's happening to so many people is because the world is so fast. They're not able to take that minute to recalibrate and to sort of maybe reconsider, rethink their life. They're not able to take that beat to say, shit, things are not going in the right direction for me. I'm fraying at the seams. Um, like I've got to just recalibrate, recalculate. But life is so fast that no one is doing that. And the result of not doing it is burnout.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's gonna get better because, people are more and more stressed, with the world we're in. A lot of people feel like their jobs are gonna get replaced, and, and I mean, everything is more expensive, so we just always feel like we need to do more and more and more and more. So I don't know if this is gonna get better, but I do believe that conversations like these where, we can I'm very grateful that you can openly talk about this shame and being stripped of your identity and how it felt, and go so much deeper into this topic than just say, "Oh yeah, I was tired and you know, left my company." I mean, like, it's such a shortcut, and a lot of people will take it because they don't wanna. I mean, yeah, because of the shame and because of I guess also not knowing how to put words on the situation, right? I mean, how do you even where do you even start?
I think you have to acknowledge the problem. You can't fix something unless you acknowledge that it's a problem, right? And and so I guess for me, the acknowledgement was having a medical diagnosis and then, you know, a fit note immediately that changed everything because I went from being tired and stretched and, stressed and crabby and upset to all of a sudden being being told, well, there's a reason for it. So that is great to have that acknowledgement. But then for me, I know everyone's going to be different, but then for me, um, like my story of my story that followed on from that then is the loss of identity and then the shame and that. But not everyone would go through that. Like some people wouldn't go through a loss of identity. Maybe if you were like married or if you maybe had a family or children, then maybe you wouldn't feel such a loss of identity because you are just burnt out, but you've still got this infrastructure, this family infrastructure around you. And I didn't have that. So therefore, I think for me, it like everyone's burnout journey is unique to them. The one thing I would say, and I guess again, like I'm trying to find positives in it, the crash is disgusting. The crash is painful. It hurts. You know, I can't sugarcoat it. It is absolutely vile. However, the clarity that happened after that crash and the ability to just see things and that enforced stop, that but pulling the emergency cord and it all just stopping, like unless you crashed, like I said, I don't know how you would ever have that clarity. So for me, like I would never, ever, ever want to go through the crash again. But the opportunity to pause and take a beat and see and have clarity and see these things, like yes, I would definitely look to do that again in the future, which is that kind of like what we were debating about, like, well, how do you how do you do it when life's going 100 miles an hour? But I feel for me, because I've got all of my separate things in their own socket now, and I can turn things off. I probably could create I could create a stop moment by sort of winding back on some things and not feeling guilty because because I'm a people pleaser and I don't have boundaries that are in pen. And so now I have all of that. I feel like life is on my terms a bit more now, whereas before I feel like I was just hurtling along with everyone else's life because I didn't have an identity of my own. Now I'm on my my train is my life and it's going at the speed that I want it to go. And the passengers that are coming on and off my train are the people that I choose to have on and off the train. And although it's slower, I kind of I don't want the next 20 years to be the speed of the previous 20 years, because I don't want to ever crash like I just did. I'd rather just go at a, still like be excited by things, still, but there's life outside of work.
Absolutely.
It's such a duh thing to say, isn't it? Like, oh,
It is,
obviously.
but, I think that a lot of people talk about this work-life balance, and I've always said, "Well, it's just life." Like, why do we it's a life balance, like, so you're still building, you're still rebuilding, you're in the process, you're not done. Do you have any idea yet? I mean, I can imagine it's a bit soon to think about what's next, but do you have ideas of who Matt is?
I want I want to there's a list of things that I've been wanting to do. One of them is climbing. So I've just started climbing, which is such an unmat thing to do. I'm just finding things. I'm dating again. I haven't dated for a very, very, very long time because I didn't see it as a priority in my life. So I've started dating again, which is a really nice feeling. Self-care, that is who Matt is now. It's self-care, whether that's aesthetic care, or whether that's mental health care, or whatever that is. I'm looking for opportunities to like give back through some kind of, whether that's volunteering, or whether it would be amazing to help people that have, that may be facing some struggles, whether that's with their sexuality, whether that's with their work life balance, whether that's with their whatever that is. Like, I feel like I'm in a position now where, like, coming out the other end of it, like, now's the time to like just give something back. So that's, yeah, identity is a work in progress, but that's a few things that are going to be part of that identity.
Amazing. I cannot wait for the next episode where you come and tell us about everything you're doing, and all the creative things that you're probably going to put out, and the joy you're going to bring into all the giving back. I do strongly believe about giving back as well. So I cannot wait. Do you want to share a couple of, last words to anyone who is struggling and who does feel shame and who does feel like this train is never going to stop?
If the if the train is forced to stop, that's not a shameful thing to happen. That is life is just it's gonna happen, and it's gonna have an enforced stop. It's gonna feel horrible. It's gonna feel like there is just not and there's not a tomorrow, but there is. And like, I'm testament to that. Like, there is. And for people that are struggling, and it's, not too late for them to actually like just take that beat and take that moment. Life is really tough right now, especially, and it's harder. It gets harder, I think, all the time to like find a chance to take that beat. But if you don't take the beat, you run the risk of the crash. And although you can come out the other side of the crash is just, it's not worth it. If you can stop before the crash happens, then like, why would you allow the crash to happen? If unfortunately it's a little bit too late and the crash happens, like, you can build from a crash. It's not a crash, it's not the very, very end. I don't know how encouraging that is, but just, a little bit maybe of a little bit of a way of thinking about it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I am so happy to see you, joyful, and on the other side of it, I will cheer for you, and
Thank you.
your
And likewise, I will cheer for you as well.
and and yeah. So thank you so much for sharing today. I'm very, very happy we had this conversation,
Me too.
and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. Take care, Nat.